10 p.m. Roll call, please. Gwen Violet. Here. David Costa.
Here.
Stephanie House.
Here.
Jen Regola. Steve Sebastian.
Here.
Kashali Shaw.
Here.
Josie Shattuck.
Here.
Quorum
Pledge of Allegiance. Please join in Pledge Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good job. And there are cookies. There's cookies back there behind the pole. So you have a cookie. You're welcome. Public participation. During each regular and special open meeting of the board, any person may comment or ask questions of the board subject to reasonable established time constraints. The board listens to comments and questions during public participation. The board's response to comments and questions managed through policy 330, and not by the board during the public meeting. There are no one signed in. So we will move on to administrative reports.
All right, good evening, the admin group is here. Welcome back, Mr. Joy.
Thank you,
Admin reports in your packet. Anything you want to highlight?
Sure.
Mrs. Vogel.
First of all, we just want to draw your attention to the Panther Palooza fundraising. The PTO raised over $37,000. Thank you to our PTO and our school community for all of their donations. There is a link in the update regarding some updates to our parent-student handbook. There were 3. One was specific to a definition related to corporal punishment, and that came through IPA's recommended update to the handbook. One was to align with press, and then one was specific to extracurricular code of conduct, which had to do with academic eligibility. So we kind of changed some of our practices this school year, where all the practice that happens in between formative and summative assessments are also being included in Skyward to give parents and students a more comprehensive picture of what's happening in the classroom. Last year, staff was keeping some of that practice in Google Classroom, and we felt that wasn't as clear of a communication or a practice for our students and our parents, and certainly administrators to get a glance at what things are doing. So we're consolidating all of that information into Skyward, and that required us to take a little bit of a look at the eligibility reports so far this school year so that we could kind of modify what would determine academic ineligibility with some real data of what that would look like. And so we made a recommendation in here to update. Any student would be ineligible if they had 3 or more missing assignments in a single class, which is different than the standards-based academic ineligibility over the last couple of years for the grades that were standards-based. And we just clarified some things about what that academic ineligibility would mean for performance-based groups and groups that were not performance-based. So we just wanted to provide some clarity within the handbook.
For my own knowledge, performance-based activities would be like band versus, say, track. Is that?
So our performance-based groups are our athletic teams. It would
Okay.
be like our spring play because they have that performance, and it would include jazz band.
Okay.
But the other bands that meet during the school day and have dedicated rosters and grading and reporting associated with those classes are not included as an extracurricular.
That makes sense. Okay, thank you.
How the parent, I mean, I know it's in here, but how did the communication and to parents, especially with like the change of 3 missing assignments?
Well, I was waiting until this meeting, and then tomorrow morning we'll provide parents with the updated parent-student handbook and highlighting those 3 changes, the one they're probably want to draw the most attention to is the change in academic eligibility for extracurriculars and athletics.
And teachers will go over with the students too.
Yes, we will plan to have all of those who are sponsors or coaches or our band directors speak to those groups directly. We'll make some general announcements, but certainly, we want to make sure to talk specifically to the students that are enrolled in extracurricular activities.
I'm sorry, one more question. Since we are making this change now, would there be a period in which they could get assignments turned in to become in the guidelines, or as soon as this gets rolled out, is it then, nope, sorry, you have 3 missing assignments, you're not allowed to participate?
They have been operating under the previous academic eligibility. We postponed it for the last week and a half, when maybe 2 weeks after we really started to look at the data as it was coming in. So students have been quite acclimated to the previous rule around academic eligibility, which is a little bit more stringent than this. So I think they would be fine to adjust it, although we didn't enforce it the last 2 weeks. We've been keeping a close eye on it and talking to kids about it as well. So I think they'll be okay, because we're continuing to engage in dialogue with the students. Our practice here is to run a pre-eligibility report on Wednesday that our staff does review, and then starts the conversations with students too, in case they're, close to maybe not making it to be eligible the following week. And then the official report is run Friday morning.
Thank you.
A separate topic, we used to track how many students were participating in different activities. How is, in general, the participation rate in all the different activities at school?
Pretty high. I mean, it's consistent with where it's been in previous years. I mean, our goal is to try to get every student involved with something beyond their academic classes, whether that's band or choir, an athletic program, or one of our other extracurricular offerings. And so we do track that, and I have in the past provided the board with some percentages about the number of students that have participated in something extracurricular in nature. I'm happy to do that in our next report.
Thank you.
Can I just highlight a few other things?
Yes,
Just
please,
not ignore.
please.
So we have a couple other things. I'm not gonna go over all of them, but we had some great collaboration with D155 for our band and choir program over the last couple of weeks. Our 7th and 8th graders had their trip to Springfield, and we had a large number of students attending, over 70 attended. It was a very successful trip for our students. It's a short trip, it's one single overnight, but it's a wonderful opportunity for those who can attend. And just a reminder that we will alternate between Springfield and Washington, D.C. So next school year, 7th and 8th graders have an opportunity to go to D.C. And I know that there's been comments made about the rave reviews that are included in here. And last year, we started an opportunity for junior high students to give shout outs to staff in the building. And they really do a wonderful job doing that. So obviously, you can take a minute if you so desire to read through those.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anything else in the building? From my report, obviously, we're at the time of the year where the school report card is about to be produced. 2 weeks from today, I believe it's published. At the November board meeting, then you'll see a report from me similar to last year, where we're comparing ourselves and our scores with 8 other area districts. In my report, we've got all the updates from ISBA, things they've changed that may play a role in our state report card. It's just information. We haven't seen the full report card yet. I have seen some of the data, but due to their embargo rules, I'm not allowed to speak about it at a public meeting. Sorry, it is what it is. It'll be out later this month. So. We're also in levy season, so we're starting to work now on the tax levy for next year. CPI for December of 23 was posted at 3.4%. So that's the number we are using, looking at our tax levy for this year. Just following up with the board conversation we had previously about the Valley View entrance. The village has notified us they will not be giving us school zone designation on Valley View. Building's too far away, the presence of kids would be too far away from Valley View, therefore it doesn't really qualify as an area for a school zone. So I appreciate the chief's information, but that is the information he's given us at this point in time. No flashing lights.
Will the flashing lights stay on 176?
Correct, they will.
Okay.
We're in very close proximity with our north wing to 176, that will stay. and Valley View doesn't qualify. Oh, let's see, I also a word about food service balances, I sent some information out, we share this past week. Yeah, that number, it seems like every year the number creeps up and up and up, and right now it's just over $20,000 of unpaid lunch accounts. It's all lunch, so a couple years ago, the board, you recall, you reduced student fees registration down to zero. So the only fees now that students have are participation fees. If they're involved in an extracurricular activity, there's a participation fee for that sport or activity, and then of course there's lunch. So it's quite a wide variety of 250 students. I had a negative balance of over $50 when we were looking at those last week.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Like during registration, like not when the kid that was here last year that's been registering at my house, is there a way to like, at that registration point to recoup some of
We
this?
make every effort, every time we see them, to notify them they have an overdue balance, then we try to get some cash, check, credit card. Sometimes we're successful, others not.
What do other schools do?
Other schools aren't responsible for feeding our students, so we want to make sure they remain fed at school.
Well, yeah.
It varies. I mean, I've seen districts where you cut them off and go to the sun butter sandwich. We have done that in the past, and we're not currently doing that. Where you're currently not turning any student away, if they present themselves in the cafeteria, whether they have money in their account or not, we feed them lunch.
Would there be a hypothetical, opportunity to collect when a child enrolls in an extracurricular? Meaning, if you want to do a sport, you pay the $50, and then let's check your balance. If you want to do jazz band, you pay to do it, and let's check your balance.
We make every effort to try to keep those funds for parents.
Okay.
Some of the individual ones are quite high, over $500.
Huh.
Already?
If you haven't paid for a few years,
It's cumulative.
it's cumulative. So, just FYI.
And is there communication outside of just seeing the parents that then go out to say, you have an overdue balance?
There's a weekly communication that gets sent out to parents in Skype. They actually have to log in and look at it to see them.
Right.
But they don't know, like, if they don't log in, they don't know, right?
Well, if they're logging in to pay their account, they'll see.
I get an email that says there's a balance and it says which student it is. Just says you have an overdue balance and it has the student's name.
You can go look
And
and
then
see
you
what it
go,
is.
and then you go to Skyward and pay it.
It's there. Should be, next month should be about the end of the finance tracking for the 24 edition. We didn't get one for this past month, it came today. So you'll see that one on next month, and we're about to the end of closeout now. We've been in substantial completion, obviously, we're in the building. Punch list things that they worked through, they were here this past weekend finishing that up. So I believe in the next month, you'll see the end of the run out for the construction project for that edition.
We put the closeout documents and
Oh, yes.
warranties
Oh, yes,
before any of that.
before the final payouts, yes.
Whose responsibility, whose property is it between 176 and the north side of the fence on the detention pond? Between the fence, yeah, between the fence.
And the road.
Yeah, in that area, it's probably gonna be us to know it, maintain it.
You know what I'm talking about? It's like, okay,
Where it's overgrown,
yeah. I'm just curious.
we've been waiting until we still have all, the silk fence is all still up out there as well, until we get the 70% growth back on what we had, we can't take it down, so we're waiting for that to happen, and we'll cut it all down. Make it look sensible again. That's all from my reports.
Okay, on to old business. May I have a motion to approve the request from a community member to deviate from board policy 7:60 residents?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
So, in your packet, you'll see a memo with the background of the request. A little history of this, now we've had multiple, since the Woodlar started developing, 4 years ago, we've had a few families who entered into a contract to build their house, but weren't in it when the school year started. When we informed them, we had a policy on residency, they could tuition in during the time when they were non-resident. Once their property was built, they would be in. At one time, the deadline was November the 1st. You gave them, up until that time, for free. If they were not in by November the 1st, they paid tuition on a monthly basis, prorated for the year. We moved it to January 1 a couple of times. Once we did it, the board directed me to do that during the supply chain issues right after COVID. And then we did it again this past year when a family requested to move that policy. We did. January came and went. The house wasn't finished. We did it a month later. We sent them a bill for 2 students at 1 month each tuition, and has gone unpaid. Sent them correspondence. They requested you deviate your policy, and they didn't say specifically what they wanted, other than they don't want to pay the money. So they are not here tonight to say anything else to you about it. But the information that's in the memo is the facts of how it went down, how it's transpired. We currently have an outstanding bill there for $3,820.42. Residents are requesting that you waive that. My recommendation is that you do not waive that you uphold current policy. If you want to change your policy, that's within your purview to change that policy. It's not one of the ones on our docket tonight to change or amend, but if you want to do that, we can start that process next month. Your decision.
So we offered an opportunity for the individuals to come here and speak.
Correct?
Okay. And they signed and acknowledged the exception that we were willing, that we made
At the start of the school
at the
year.
start of the school year.
Correct.
And they signed that document,
That's correct.
saying by this date, or there was going to be tuition.
Correct.
That period.
Correct.
Man, I wish they would have been here.
And then at that time, the policy was November. And during that time, then you moved it to January. So they were on charge for 1 month.
So,
What do we need to do here?
yeah, because it
Well-
says approve the request.
Yeah, they requested.
So then do we vote no if we don't want to approve their request?
Correct. You would vote it down.
If you, yeah, depending, if you
So
vote.
then what are the next steps if we vote this down now? What are the next steps?
I'm gonna send out a letter, and it might go to that collection.
Do we have one already go to debt collection, or is this says in this?
Same one.
Any other questions? Okay, then roll call vote.
Steve Sebastian,
I'm sorry, it's the vote.
The motion
The motion is the vote.
to deviate from the policy and not charge the tuition. If you vote yes, we're gonna deviate from the policy. If you're gonna vote no, they owe the money.
I say no.
Josie Sherrick,
No.
Gwen Violet,
No.
David Costa,
No,
Stephanie Housh,
No.
Chriselle Shaw.
No.
Motion failed.
Thank you.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes regular and executive session minutes from September 17, 2024, bills payable, treasurer's report, quarterly financial investment reports dated September 30, 2024, disposal of district personnel property, and FY 24 audit.
Look,
second.
Discussion.
Luckily, having Kevin Smith is here tonight, he's here to talk about the audit. We haven't had anyone from the audit firm out in several years to talk about it, so I thought this would be a great time for Kevin to come out and say hello and talk about the process and answer the questions the board may have about our audit.
All right, well, thanks, I am Kevin, so, thanks for having me. When we come on, we usually just go over a quick rundown on how the audit went, some key financial numbers, point out a couple things within the report, so, first, field work overall was very smooth, John's really great to work with, they've been great to work with for years, so, no issues there. As far as the audit itself, there's no management letter, So each year when we come up for the audit, we do things, we go through internal controls, make sure those are all up to order, there's no, breaks in there or some potential for improvement there. Nothing that we saw that needed any kind of management or comment. No significant journal entries, so we make some reclass journal entries each year, but nothing significant. Most of them honestly had to do with GASB 87, which is a police standard that was a couple of years ago that really is more so ISB requires these to be paid out of debt service fund now. So we had some reclass entries to move those there. So nothing significant though. As far as the opinion, you guys got a clean opinion on the cash basis of accounting. So no issues there. As far as new accounting standards, and so nothing new this year. The last couple of years, there's been some new ones. Like I mentioned, GASB 87 was a new lease standard, where essentially you had to bring leases onto your books on the government-wide financial statements and treat them basically like fixed assets. You basically have debt on the books and an asset on the books that you depreciate over a lease term. Last year was GASB 96, which is subscription-based information technology arrangements. Effectively the same thing, except it's for like cloud-based type software, which most school districts, most of their software either are less than a year or they have cancellation clauses for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Effectively make them short term and they don't qualify. So nothing under there. You guys do have a few things under GASB 87, some copiers, the office space that you guys rent, and then some buses. So those are all under government-wide financial statements. There's an asset, it's called a right-to-use asset, and then a right-to-use liability on the books. As far as financial highlights then, so fund balance numbers you guys are used to looking at on a regular basis, your regular funds. You guys are up about 7.2 million this year, which is almost entirely due to the bond issuance that you guys had this year. That's why it's up so high this year. So your capital projects fund is also high right now as well. In correspondence with that, there's also a footnote in the report that notes the outstanding balance of the construction you guys have going on as of 6/30. More specifically than the general fund, so you have just over 6 months current year expenses, which is pretty consistent with prior years, and in a good range. We normally say between 6 months to 24 months, but so you guys are on the lower end, but you're still in a good range there. 24 months is also a little lower than what some of the new state statutes are saying now. So the new statute that came out recently is making you guys put out a spend on policy if you get to 2.5 years. So we've always had 24 months, so we've always kind of cautioned if you guys get that high. It's kind of set a standard now, more for property tax objections at 2.5 years now. As far as the O&M fund, then you guys are at about 22 months, so still in that range. Debt service is basically zero. You basically transfer in and out of there to cover payments each year. There's no need to build up certain funds in there. Then just over a year in transportation, so good spot there. IMRF is just under 9 months. Capital, like I mentioned, is high now. It's just over 2 years, but obviously that's for a specific purpose and going to be spent down. So no concerns there. Fire prevention and safety, then that is higher, but same concept. Fire prevention and safety and capital projects funds are not looked at as far as the 2.5 year procedure is not considered an operating fund. Those are built up for a specific project. So that one, again, it's not good to look at it from a current year expenditure standpoint, just because it's built for a specific purpose. You guys are going to spend it down at a later date for a specific project. Then on page 7 of the report, so this is your government-wide financials. This is where the fixed assets, the GASB 87, 96 leases that we talked about come onto the books, and any kind of debt that you guys have on there. So for the current year, you guys had an increase of about $300,000. The main difference between that and 7.2 million discussed earlier is shown in detail on page 11 of the report. It's really due to the bond issue and the capital projects. So on your guys' fund financials, when you guys have the bond issue, it's considered basically an increase. It increases your cash, it's considered another financing source. When you get to the government-wide financials, that's now debt. So it comes off the books, it goes up into a liability. Same thing with the fixed assets. You guys spend money on a capital project, it's an expense of the funds. When you get to the government-wide financial statements, it's a fixed asset, so it gets moved off the books. It's no longer an expense. You depreciate that over time. So those are the main two differences there. Overall, then, as far as footnotes, no real changes from recent years, other than the new footnote that was added last year or 2 years ago for GASB 87. That's where it notes all the leases, the terms, how long they're outstanding out there, and then for this year, the commitment for the construction project. That's out there. Other than that, those are the main things that I usually go over, so if you guys have any specific questions, let's say.
Just as a reminder to the board, the O and M, it comes up to 22 months reserve. That's the one that we were over the threshold last year, had the tax objection on the O and M fund. Due to that 2.5 year rule. So yeah, first we're trying to spend that down, make sure we're underneath that threshold. Moving forward. Questions for our auditor?
Thank you for coming out.
Yeah, they.
No problem.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right, thank you guys. Have a good one.
You too.
Roll call, vote, please. Josie Shattuck? Yes. Gwen Bilek?
Yes.
David Costa?
Yes.
Stephanie House?
Yes.
Steve Sebastian?
Yes.
Michelle Shaw?
Yes.
Motion carried. May I have a motion to approve school maintenance project grant FY25 round one?
Second.
Discussion.
So nearly every year, ISB offers school districts a chance for a $50,000 matching grant for school maintenance projects. They have different categories: emergency projects, health, life, safety projects, state priority projects, permanent improvement projects, and then other doesn't fit underneath there. If you recall, last year we had the emergency flooding in the junior high, and we used the money to repair those classrooms in those areas. We've done all the health, life, safety projects that we've had on our books from back in 2016, so I really don't have any more projects to spend it on, to why we did a levy last year on the health, life, safety account, because we don't have a project to fund. There's no point in levying money in that fund. So I was struggling to come up with what would we get to $100,000 to spend the money. It's 50 grand in matching. If you don't spend it, you don't get reimbursement from the state. So the one area that we've talked about the last couple of years would be the glass doors, like this door 15's got glass entrances on it, right next to that you have the wall and windows. And adding a layer of protective 3M glazing to the inside of those windows would give us inside the building 2 to 4 minutes of extra time, should there be someone who's actually trying to break into the building, whether it be with an axe or a firearm. It would give us another 2 to 4 minutes to hide, lock the doors down, protect ourselves. When I got some quotes on that, the numbers came in way less than what I thought it was gonna be, so the full project's in like $60,000 range, which doesn't get us to the full $50,000 that the state's willing to give us. If you're okay with that, going for a lesser grant, we'll apply for it as is. If you wanna try to get the full $50,000, if you vote it down tonight, we'll find something else to spend the money on safety-wise over the next month. We have until, I believe, December. No, it has to be done by next month's board meeting. We have to have it. Yes, like I said, in the ISB.
And so it has to be related to a safety issue.
It has to be it has to be an emergency project. Something broke. We had a flood, that
Yeah.
qualified as emergency. You have a health, life, safety project, or you're fixing something with regard to school security.
So it can't be access control or security equipment.
We just did all that. We did all the access controls. I mean, we have some door to put it on, but we also don't want access controls on every single door.
Cameras.
We have 60 plus cameras now. We did upgrade that this past year. So we tried to do all those projects within the money that we had from the 2 bond issues for the additions.
I mean, fire door wise, we're good. Right? I mean, the only other area outside of the 3M coating on glass doors and windows would be vestibule on the new side, on the new construction, where students would be coming in.
Correct, it will be a vestibule, be like an outdoor.
You mean
Right.
in between?
And in between.
Oh, in between, yeah,
Yeah,
and that's not gonna qualify
yeah,
as
that's not
a
the
part of this
law.
project.
What is the name of the process called?
Glazing.
Like,
Glazing?
It's a specific glazing, yes.
Okay, could that perhaps be done to the library doors?
Oh, it was all exterior doors. Internally,
Yeah,
if we can, that's not gonna push that number any higher. You could do that through the interior doors,
well, we had just talked at the last meeting
Yes.
about that, yeah.
about that particular door.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of glass.
Yep. We could add there as well.
I'm thinking of last.
I know when our safety committee met in the last couple of years, the wall of glass in both of the additions has been a concern to people. And so this is a way to help minimize that concern and give us another layer of protection and chance to get to an area of safety and refuge. And honestly, I thought it would be a lot more money than it turned out to be, so.
And this is for the top and bottom of the doors. I recall at one point the discussion was just about the bottom.
It would be both top and bottom of that glass door.
Like, I don't anticipate being able to come up with extra projects in.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Like,
So then you were
you had other conversations internally to say, what else can we do? And nothing other than the glazing has come up.
Everything of the things that you talked about are things that we've talked about, like, let's put on our list of safety issues that we want to address. We've addressed them all. So
We're good.
we're in really good shape right now when it comes to that. You've done some great work. So if you're okay with it, I'm willing to submit the grant. It'll still be approved. Just somebody else will get a chance to get some more money later on. There might be a round two later on.
Yeah.
If not everybody applies for the round one money, sometimes there's a round two.
That's fine.
Okay.
Then roll call.
When Violet,
Was that, are we going down because the vote is to approve it?
The vote
Was to approve it,
Is
yeah.
to approve it, so you-
Vote is to approve it.
Vote yes to
So
approve it,
yes.
no to not.
So-
I'll find something else.
We are
If we
saying
want to
okay.
look for other stuff, then we can vote it down.
Then you say no.
Okay,
I think we're prepared to move forward with this, but we're not maximizing the grant option.
okay, so yes.
David Costa,
Yes.
Stephanie House,
Yeah.
Steve Sebastian,
Yes.
Jody Shannon. Yes. Shelley Shaw.
Yes.
Motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the first reading of Board Policy Press 116 additions, deletions, and changes?
Second.
Discussion? Anybody have a question? All in favor say aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion to set a special board meeting on October 29th, November 8th, and November 9th, 2024?
So moved.
Second. Discussion, this is for our,
So Al Mobley couldn't be here tonight, so he requested a different night to come back and meet with you, talk about the candidate list on the 29th. And then your round one interviews on Friday, the 8th of November, and Saturday the 9th. And because it's a full board those nights, it's a board meeting. It's a closed session, but still a board meeting, we'll post it. Advertise it as a special board meeting for closed session.
so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. May I have a motion to adjourn at 7:33 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Good night.
30 minutes.